Do you have a favorite TV show or series? If so, you've probably noticed that some seasons are better than others. Maybe the show peaks about halfway through and tails off for a little bit before capturing its charm in the final season. Now, if we apply this thought to Lego, my favorite series would be the Modular line. And if you've watched our videos over the last couple of years, you probably know this. Now, the Lego Modular line is 16 years old. And so I think it's worth asking the question, like TV shows, has the modular line become a little stale? Now, in this video, I'm going to analyze some data to help answer that question. And at the end, I'll provide some key implications for what the analyses mean. Okay, so where does this question come from? I love modular building, so I love going on YouTube and watching videos about modulars. I also enjoy reading forums about the line, and there's this epic forum on Eurobricks on the modular rumors and discussion that's now over 460 pages long. Now, somebody recently posted a question or a statement on that thread talking about how they think maybe Lego should stop producing the modular building because it's become a little old and repetitive and has lost some of the charm from the original modular sets. Rather than simply dismiss this unpopular opinion offhand, I decided to think about this for just a moment because as a Lego fan, I know that there are themes that go through ups and downs. There are times when some of the themes become stale. For instance, I'm a huge Lego Castle fan, and I can tell you that there are some waves that they've released over the years that were pretty redundant from the past. They regurgitated ideas and sets, and even some of the execution and building techniques from previous years' waves. I referenced TV shows a little bit earlier, and there's certainly a pattern that you can see if you look at some data as it relates to the quality of shows within a series. In fact, TheRinger.com did an analysis of over 1,500 TV shows and series that examined when shows peaked in quality and what happened next. And they looked at a variety of types of shows. They looked at dramas, they looked at comedies, they even looked at dramedies. And they found that typically shows peak about halfway through their running, and then they decline. And maybe they'll have a tick up at the end as people engage with the final season. Now, let's bring this back to Lego. How would we know if a line has become stale? Now, we don't have sales figures. We don't really know much information about how Lego's tracking the popularity of sets, but we do have a pretty vocal and engaged online community. So I decided to go there to get some help as to how we could look at whether or not the modular buildings have become stale. I'm going to look at three measures. One is the brick set rating for a particular modular building. The second is a score from brickinsights.com, and the third is the Brick Insights recommendations rating that come along with some of those scores. I can't guarantee that these data are representative of the Lego community because after all, this is the online community, which may not be the same as everyone else, but I think it can give us some sense of what's going on and perhaps tell us whether or not this line has become stale. Let's start with the average Brickset review score, which comes from Brickset users and can range from 1 to 5. Overall, there aren't many fluctuations in this blue time series line. Every modular fits within a range of between 4.1 and 4.6. There are, however, some interesting patterns in the scores. Check out the 2007 to 2013 modulars. The peak came in year 2 with the Green Grocer at a 4.6 rating, but then declined to the Palace Cinema's 4.2. We see something similar with the brickinsights.com scores, which range from 0 to 100 and include a variety of reviews from online communities such as Brickset, Lego.com, Piran, YouTube influencers, and other online influencers. The original 3 Lego-designed modulars each earned scores at or above 90. But after that, they dipped into their mid to upper 80s. The Palace Cinema again represented a low point here as well with a score of 86. At this point in the modular series, it might be fair to say that the sets had lost some of their luster. But with this in mind, LEGO, just like a TV show might introduce us to a new character or give us a huge plot twist, LEGO decided to give us something a little bit more different. The Parisian Restaurant was released in January of 2014, and this set represented a second peak for LEGO modulars. Check out the brick set ratings. It got a 4.6, which ties it with the Greengrocer for the highest rated modular of all time. Now, what about Brick Insights? It gets a 95 here, which places it above every other modular building. The Modular Reset, which focused more explicitly on built-in storylines, was continued with the Detective's Office, which featured a cookie smuggling ring placed in the architectural context of the Prohibition era here in the United States. Yet the success of the reset was short-lived. Both Brick Set and Brick Insights reveal a little bit of a decline in scores in the subsequent modular releases. For Brick Set, the low point came in 2019 with the release of the Corner Garage, which has a 4.1 rating, the lowest for any modular. For Brick Insights, the Brick Bank was relatively poorly received. The Assembly Square and Downtown Diner were considered to be solid modulars, before the Corner Garage represented the nadir of the series with a score of 79. Since 2019, LEGO has released a number of typical modular buildings. The bookshop, the police station, boutique hotel, the jazz club. These are sets that don't really pop like the Greengrocer or the Parisian Restaurant in terms of ratings, but they're also not all that low either. I want to look at the long-term trend though. Note the red lines, which declined slightly in both the Brick Set and Brick Insights measures. These decreases are slight, so let's not get too carried away and infer that the modulars are stagnating. But it is clear we haven't seen anything pop quite like the Parisian Restaurant nearly 10 years ago. There's a third measure I want to look at though, and that is the Brick Insights recommendations. Now on their website they explain more about this, but basically what they're talking about here is that people review sets pretty favorably. After all, if you spend your money on a set, you've probably done a little bit of research and you want to get that set, which can lead to scores being a little inflated. So the recommendation looks at whether or not these people would, well, recommend the set to other people. And so you might buy a set, you might like it, but you still may not recommend it to others. And that's where we start seeing a little bit of an interesting twist to our analysis. Plotting the recommendation ratings in blue with a linear trend line in red, there's a clear pattern. An early peak, followed by a steep decline through 2013's Palace Cinema, which was recommended by only 25% of viewers. After a slight recovery from 2014 to 2018, the modulars hit a low point with the Corner Garage, recommended by only 13% of reviewers. Even as a modular fan, that recommendation score is not very good. But this is where we want to be careful though, because it's easy to manipulate statistics to interpret something that may not be reflective of the truth. One problem with the recommendations score is that, well, there aren't a lot for each set, and so a couple of recommendations or lack thereof could skew the numbers. Also, notice that we can adjust the trend line to get a completely different story of what's going on with the modular line. Here are the recommendation ratings with a linear trend line, which shows a marked decline. But if we switch it to a polynomial trend line, which better accounts for fluctuations in the data, we could reach a different conclusion. The modulars declined from its early peak, yes, but is in a period of resurgence led by the police station, which has the second highest recommendation rating of any modular, noting, of course, that they don't have recommendation scores for the last two modulars. Which interpretation is more accurate? Well, it may depend on your point of view, but I'm going to make the argument that the modulars are doing just fine. Why? Well, check this out. On brickset.com, they have a category entry for 17,000 LEGO sets and products, of which only 399 have received a rating of 4.5 or higher. That is 2.3% of all LEGO sets receiving this rating. Now that's a pretty good rating. But among modulars, 4 out of 17, that's almost 24% get that rating. There's a much higher percentage of modulars in this rating range than there is for the typical Lego set. And here's the thing, even if we expand it to a 4.4 out of 5, we're now talking about 721 sets out of those 17,000, which is around 4.3%. But for the Lego modulars, 11 out of 17 fit that bill. That means over 64% of modulars are getting a score that's similar to only 4.3% of the rest of Lego sets. So what are the key takeaways from this? Well, first, let's keep in mind that not every Lego modular can be the greatest of all time. It's just not feasible. Some modulars are going to be better received by the fan community than others. The Palace Cinema wouldn't be anywhere near the top of my modular list, but it's still a pretty darn good Lego set overall. Second, the notion that the Lego modular line is becoming stale is, I think, more of a product of the overall excellence of the line than it is with outdated building techniques, repetitive builds, or a loss of the charm from the original buildings. After all, I think we all have these opinions about the latest modular. I know the cool yellow facade in the pizza shop adjacent to the jazz club was controversial for some people this year. But as somebody who has built every single Lego designed modular building, I can tell you that every single one of them has a unique approach to building, uses unique pieces in creative ways that I've never thought of before. If I can go back to the TV analogy just one more time, I think it's easier for Lego to introduce us to new pieces and building techniques than it is for a show to introduce us to brand new characters that fit seamlessly within the plot line of the series. If you take a look at the Lego modulars, we see this evolution happen time and time again. The introduction of bow slopes allowed the Parisian restaurant to have a really fantastically designed and built roof. The introduction of the candle pieces work really well for the bookshop when you have this separation between the window panes of the bay window. Time and time again, we see new pieces being ushered in. And because of the endless permutations that we have with Lego bricks, there's no way that the set designers, if they're doing their job correctly, can run out of ideas on how to put things together. So if the modular line becomes stale, it's not because of the Lego brick, it's because the set designers lose all inspiration, and I think that's pretty unlikely. Finally, Lego is not afraid to take risks with the modular line. Many people love the charm of the late 19th and early 20th century architecture from the early part of the series, but there are other people who like the more vibrant, dynamic colors that we see in the more recent modular buildings. Ultimately, the buildings have evolved considerably over time, and if you compare the most recent modular buildings, they're almost nothing like the original Cafe Corner, Greengrocer, and Fire Brigade. Over the years, they've broken away from using just smiley faces on the minifigs. They've changed how they do the sidewalks to incorporate jumper plates, more tiling, and more interesting, unique builds on the interior. At the end of the day, this line is ever changing. And so it makes it very hard for it to be stale or stagnant when it changes so much from the beginning to where it is right now. So I would recommend enjoy the modulars while we have them, because who knows really how long they are going to last. Hey, before you go, check out this other Lego related video on our channel. I think you'll like it. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and always remember to keep building together.